Yo! Hi everyone! Happy Spooky Month! Or Halloween. I think it's gonna depend on when this video is finished. Anyhow, here's the FATHOM as a series I covered over a year ago at this point. They're basically Reddit horror threads converted into short horror stories recounted by those who survived. Woo! When I talked about them a year ago, well, at first I was new to editing and making the type of content that I am right now. And second, I sometimes feel like I was a little biased, not gonna lie. And I'm also curious to go back and see what I think of them now. Like last time, I'll be putting each of them in a tier list after revisiting them, and at the end we'll see which one I found to be the best and if they still hold up after a few years. I'll also divide the video through chapters so you can skip through the episodes if you'd like. Home Alone starts us off with our character explaining that he was left alone for a weekend back here when he was 14 in the middle of summer, and also that his sleeping schedule sucked. We're woken up by our alarm that destroys my ears, by the way. I don't know what that was about. Once we get up, we go near our desk to try doing our homework before Miles lets us know he was stronger to do that right after waking up, so we inevitably head outside our room before we get a text from our mother. This is a recurring mechanic in the games where you sometimes use phone messages or a character's recounting of the story written as subtitles to progress. She lets us know that she left us some lasagna in the fridge and that we won't need to cook anything. Before heading downstairs, I checked out the parents' room. We're looking outside. Who the fuck are you, bro? Michael Myers? I pick up the lasagna from the fridge and heat it back up in the oven. To this day, I'm not 100% sure why they don't just use the microwave and also eat up the entire thing, but anyway. Miles mentioned he likes to eat while watching TV, so we go ahead and sit down with our full plate of lasagna to eat. We all did this one, am I right, guys?
Oh my god, what is that? What is that?
After eating, we finally go back upstairs to do homework, but before that, we noticed the back door slightly open. After a few hours, we head back to bed. A little while later, once again, we wake up wanting some water, so we head downstairs to grab a bottle from the fridge. Quick mention of the music in general, sound ambience in this part, it always makes me want to sprint back upstairs after like 2 droplets of water, honestly. Sprinting, which doesn't really work in the stairs, which makes the stress worse, honestly. Like, why am I slower sprinting in the stairs than walking? What is this? It's only when we get back in our room upstairs, when we're about to head back in our bed, that we receive a text from our mom. Mom, it's like 1 a.m. Why are you still awake? Oh, okay, yeah, that makes a lot of sense, actually. Turns out the intruder we saw heading up the stairs is at our door. Now, I don't know about you guys, but knowing that he was able to get in the house as well kind of adds to the whole fear factor. Obviously, Miles isn't really aware that he can even get in, but oh lord, we do when it puts us in a state of wanting to not listen to what our character tells us to do in fear of just walking into that guy. Anyway, the objective here is to head downstairs and look for the blinds. Once you do, there he is. He won't react or move much at all unless you speak into your mic. In which case, he reacts and stares at you. Other games in this series use this microphone mechanic, but to be honest, it's definitely more of a thing for streamers to get an easy clip out of rather than something truly relevant. But at least that's how I see it. Honestly, it could be scary for a first-time player realizing their mic's audio is being picked up, but after that, it just becomes more of a quick challenge than anything else. After seeing the intruder through the blinds, you go back upstairs to hide under your bed. A little while after, you hear a window break. Wow, good vibes. Eventually, your doorbell starts ringing, and a text comes in from your mom telling you it's Paula, your neighbor, aka the person who sent your mom the photo of the intruder at the door in the first place. Now, with all due respect, I kind of doubt that, to be honest, but to progress through the story, you have no choice but to try to go to the front door again. Now, at this specific point, we are kind of met with 2 different choices. A. Go back to your room. B. Try to make a run for it to the front door. If you guessed A, congratulations, you are correct. Trying to head for the door at this point triggers a jump scare and game over, so you just skedaddle back to your room and hide again until you inevitably hear police sirens in the distance. And then finally, you're safe. Honestly, I think the series was already off to an amazing start at this point. You pretty much had the foundation for this to be an amazing and truly scary game. However, I always felt like the climax, only maybe being a fourth of the game's runtime, was a little boring, given though we were told that the game's runtime was around 20 minutes, so it does check out. Granted, there's a lot of details to grow the unease, like seeing the intruder go up the stairs or seeing him looking at your house from your parents' bedroom, but these are all extremely easy things to miss if you aren't paying attention. Truthfully, I missed pretty much all of them when I first played. I still think Home Alone is a good start to what Fears to Fathom will eventually become, and for that, it deserves a good B. second episode came out around a year after Home Alone, and from the get-go, Jesus, effort was put into this one to expand on the gameplay. Because what do you mean we can drive now?
I'm in my mom's car. Broom, broom.
However, you can't drift. I know, I was hoping we could too, but this isn't GTA, unfortunately. Our character's name this time is Holly, who's driving back home after a gaming convention. As we're driving, we get multiple texts from her dad and friend discussing random things like traffic and how we had to reroute. And our dad seemingly being very worried for us for some reason. We continue to drive for a while until we notice that we are almost out of gas, so we decide to stop at the nearest gas station. Once we get there, we get our gas. And wait, am I seeing this correctly? You can talk to people now? Anyway, the cashier tells us some weird horror story about never letting a hitchhiker get a ride from us, and the other person present in the store isn't quite the nicest as well. Our mom also asks us for some dog food, so we go back inside to grab some before heading back on the road. After another little while of driving, a log ends up blocking our path, so we head out to move it out of the way. It's only when we try to continue moving that our car stops working. Of course. So, well, nothing better to do than try and become the hitchhiker from those horror stories. The first car who passes by very much does not care even in the slightest. Fuck you too, dude. But thankfully, a truck ends up stopping for us. It ends up being the guy from the gas station who offers us a ride, so we do like 5,000 trips from our car to his trucks to grab our things, and then we're off. We talk with him a little bit before he drops us off at a motel that offers road service, and he's really cryptic, to be honest. What the hell do you mean you don't bother them and they don't bother you? I didn't do shit. Anyway, once we're dropped off, we head inside and we get our room from the manager, who's also weird. He also lets us know that quote-unquote Tommy, whoever that is, will take care of our car for us. So with nothing more to do, time to do another lengthy trip from the reception to our room with our stuff. Pause. Do you guys feel like these segments were put there just to make the game longer? Like, do you really think Holly said, I traveled back and forth with my stuff? These moments felt very tedious in my opinion, honestly. Moving on though. Once that's all done, if you open the bathroom, you'll meet the super lovely Tommy in question. He's really interesting to say the least, and he was apparently quote-unquote preparing our room. Sure. With him gone, we finally lay down the seriously? Can't have a chill moments in these games, bro, I swear. Holly mentions how there was something very off about the place, but oddly enough, I don't think she ever really talks about that guy at the window. Unless the quote-unquote there was something off comment is about that. But it feels really underwhelming in my opinion. But moving on, Holly thinks a cup of coffee could potentially help with her anxiety, even though for me it does the opposite, not gonna lie. So we head outside our room towards the machine to grab some. Once we do that, yep. Unfortunately, the drinks in the coffee machine were very noticeably drugged, and after struggling to get back to your room, because the controls are inverted at this point, you immediately stumble back into bed and fall asleep. When we wake up, we very obviously notice someone hiding in a wardrobe. No offense, but they definitely weren't the best at hide and seek, that's for sure. Obviously, going to check it out would be extremely stupid, so instead you wait until the guy from the reception comes knock at your door, since you apparently disturbed the other guests, which makes no sense since you know we were very much out cold. He ends up noticing that Ollie's eyes are red, and we lead him into the coffee machine that has, of course, disappeared. Well, isn't that fun, guys? At this point, the receptionist seems to crash out, for lack of a better term, honestly, and insists a lot on us heading back to our room and taking the medication in the nightstand, which we do. Girl, Ollie, I love you, but why would you do that? After getting drugged too, no less. But nonetheless, we take them and lay back down in the bed. Until someone snaps a picture of us in the distance while we had our back turned. I am not even joking with you, I felt creeped the fuck out at this point because that is just the worst thing. The thing that makes the picture scarier to me than the weird guys around us, or even someone being in our room and hiding, is that the picture really grounds the fact that we're a target, if that makes sense. Earlier, the guy in a wardrobe could have been another break-in like we had in Home Alone, but that guy didn't even steal anything when you think about it. He wanted specifically something to do with us, and lord, that gives me chills, dude. And also, if you stand near the window after the photo is taken, whispers can be heard. That does not make the situation better whatsoever. You can even hear creepy ass hellos coming from the door.
Hello?
Stay away from me, bro. When you go up to the door, they try to trick you into opening it, saying that they need help. Obviously, though, we aren't stupid and keep it closed, since opening it results in a game over anyway. While you slowly drift away from the door, all of a sudden, the person becomes more aggressive. Wow! No way! They swear they're not a cop once you ask them to leave, unless he changes fucking nothing. They then start banging on the door because, of course, a very obvious no isn't what they wanted to hear. We had in our wardrobe the same place the man in our room hid in earlier, and honestly just hope he doesn't check this place at this point. Also, peep the microphone. Like I mentioned, it's used pretty often from now on, but I swear if you removed it, the game wouldn't change all that much. I still genuinely think they're a cool addition, but nothing more mostly. Now obviously, the door doesn't hold and the man ends up entering the room and looking for us. Once he enters the bathroom and starts heading towards the wardrobe, the manager thankfully knocks him out and saves us. Holly then comes forward and explains that the manager didn't want to call the police to not endanger the motel's reputation and that she believes the town might have been home to a cult or something like a drug ring. After that, she explains that Tommy finally arrived with the car and that she never went on long trips again, decided to opt for planes instead. Alright, I have a lot to talk about this one. First of all, it was obvious from the beginning that Ollie wasn't followed and attacked by only one person. But at the beginning, while driving, you can see a car in front of you that eventually speeds up. This car has a hand sticking out from its trunk. You can also notice a man that walks off in the woods if you look closely. At the gas station, you can see another man in a white van doing something to your car before driving off. You can see this exact same white van at the motel as well. It's strongly believed that Ollie actually had two men after her for most of the story. There's the man in the white van, who's also the man who walked into the forest, and the other who eventually ends up breaking into the hotel room. I was a big fan again of this whole blink and you'll miss it for all the details added in this episode as well. They add so much to the story while not having to add a jump scare to make you jump out of your seat every second. Though I have a certain issue with this episode, which would again be the pacing. We spent an awful amount of time driving, being at the gas station and then driving to the motel. For an episode that's focused on getting stalked and harassed at a motel, it feels a bit counterproductive to have half, if not more, of the runtime be focused on setting up the story before the climax. Though, like I said, I won't lie and say that this episode isn't extremely scary and relatable. I'm an AFAB person, and unfortunately, I have to admit that the fear of being followed or similar things is very real. This is the comparison I made in my older videos on the series, but Holly as a character is also just very relatable, and it helps to make the fear of something happening to her more real. I also like the new gameplay additions to make it more engaging, like the driving and adding actual dialogue. That gives more life and makes you realize how a lot of these characters were weird from the get-go. Unfortunately, the pacing messes this episode up, and for that, I'm going to give it a B-. So it goes right under Home Alone. Okay, so from here, episodes get significantly longer as we go, so buckle up, buckaroo. This one starts off in a dream sequence in a laundromat, and we honestly won't pay too much attention to it or retain anything from it at all since it's never brought up again and serves purely as the introduction. After being yelled at by your dad because he really wants bleach, you wake up in the car. Turns out, your dad is a real estate agent who managed to get you a small job for the weekend, house-sitting one of his clients' house. It sounded easy enough, so our protagonist accepted. Protagonist who's named Noah, by the way. Our dad mentions that the key is under the fake rock before heading off. We head around the house to the backyard to say hi to a little guy in there. Oh right, and grab the key. Sorry, got off track. By the way, I mentioned this back then, but why do we feel the need to grab the whole rock? And not just the key? Somebody explain this to me. I feel like I'm going insane. We explore the house a little bit, and we also get our first message from Mr. Carson, the man who holds the house. He tells us that he wouldn't have even asked anyone if it wasn't for Zeke, the dog outside. But the poor little guy has been sick lately. Eventually, we're asked to get his dinner from the basement, so we find a flashlight and head down before giving it to him. Aww. After that, Mr. Carson asks for another favor, which is fixing his computer, since it's connected to the whole security system of the house. Starting to think it would be really cool if that worked, honestly. We go inside the office, hop on the computer, and okay, dang, that was quick. After installing a very sketchy antivirus, the problem seems to be resolved, and we can now access the cameras. While we're watching TV, Mr. Carson asks us for another favor. I'm starting to think I'm just this guy's maid, to be honest. And he asks us to go grocery shopping for him. Oh, time to head off. As I make it there, this nice grandma asks me to find the mustard, and like the good citizen I am, I grab it for her. After that, time to actually grab everything from the list. While there, we meet two of her friends called Turner and Andy. Noah doesn't seem to particularly appreciate them, but they let us know interesting information that apparently a certain Kara was here not too long ago. It also appears that she's Noah's ex. Yeah, I don't think I'm too fond of these guys either, but moving on. Once we're back home, we just leave the groceries on the counter before heading upstairs. Then we get a text from Andy to look up Mr. Carson's name, and once we do, we learn of a nasty divorce situation with his ex-wife, who just so happens to be a celebrity, and that angry fans have to come knock at the door. This is the point of the game where the scenario tries to make you think a fan is going to think Noah is Mr. Carson and come knock at the door or even break in to possibly do something. Honestly, I'm not sure what. But being in this gigantic house with the menace of a random person breaking in is, again, really fucking terrifying actually. But so far, I wasn't really convinced by this episode since Home Alone already did this recipe. I'm very well at that. But nonetheless, someone ends up ringing the doorbell and it's a pizza delivery man. Obviously, we didn't order pizza, but he says it's for Mr. Carson, so we open it. He asks us to come in since it's raining, but homie, you drove here. What do you mean? Yeah, that's what I thought. Get out of here. We munch on our pizza in front of the TV until we hear another knock at the door. This time, it's a floor booker. Okay. We then receive texts from an unknown sender asking how we're doing, what we had for dinner, but Noah decides to ignore them, choosing to believe that it's a wrong number. We finally head back to the office and do our math homework until the power goes out at 1 a.m. We also notice a few missed messages from earlier's unknown sender. You know, I don't think it was a wrong number, twin. We managed to turn the power back on from outside, and Noah suspects that it's actually Turner from the grocery store earlier, and the crowd face palms. Though he does mention having a strange gut feeling about the whole thing, so at least he's not 100% stupid. While checking on the cameras, we can see the recording room has been completely turned around and that the oven's on. Oh, see, that wasn't us. So of course we go down to turn it off, and Noah, still thinking Turner's doing this for some reason, decides to text Andy to get him to stop. Of course, Andy answers that Turner is with him at this place. After that, Noah slightly panics, rightfully so, and only thinks of using the cameras as his only defense mechanism, until we see someone, in fact, in the house. Upstairs even. We can even see her holding a knife, actually. Scoping over some details here, the objective is to hide in the laundry room while she's in another room, wait until she's expecting the office, and run off while she has her back turned. And then you'll be out of danger. After that, Noah left the house and ran down the block, while his dad called the cops. She'd already left the house when they arrived, but thankfully, Noah remembered where she lived. After all, it was in fact Kara, Noah's ex, who he left after she started having problems with drugs early on into their relationship. Of course, she tried to convince the cops she didn't want to do anything than that, but the queen, you were caught on the cams with a knife in your hand. Noah ended up by explaining that the fact she didn't steal anything from the house is probably what messed with him the most, and that thankfully she was sentenced for a pretty long while. Honestly, while I think this is a lot of people's favorite episode, I just don't care much for it. Don't get me wrong, it's still amazing and has a good premise, but unlike Norwood Hitchhike, where I could really relate and identify myself to Ellie's character, my ass is Ace, bro. Me and Noah have next to nothing in common, I'm not gonna lie. This episode also felt really repetitive. After already being in the house alone in the first episode, repeating the recipe with a twist in a similar, if not the same vein, feels really boring to me. Not to say that this is a bad episode by any means. For example, I think the pacing significantly improved this time around, and the attention to detail is still amazing. Just not one of my favorites. Don't hate me for this, but I'll be giving this one a C. Honestly, I kind of lied last time when I said the episodes got longer on from here, but I swear this time the episodes genuinely get longer and more detailed, so actually buckle up this time. This time we're playing as Jack Nelson, a forest ranger who just got transferred to a different department, which means we also get assigned to a new tower. Yippee! Once we're driving, we of course receive some messages, some from our sister recommending a small diner for us to stop by on our way, and others from Mitch, who's pretty much our boss now, describing a few things about our new job and what we need to do once we arrive. You keep driving, learning more about Jack on the way, for example, how he likes the loneliness of being a park ranger and being surrounded by nature. You finally arrive at the diner, park your RV, very dangerously, do not let me drive, and immediately head inside. Okay, man, I won't disturb you further, my bad. The waitress comes say hello to us before we go and talk to the other people inside. There's this one who stares at you, and this now makes two weird people in a single spot. I'm scared for my life. And then we sit down. We order food and drink and eat. Obviously, we pay, and then we end up talking to the people sitting at the corner. They all end up mostly mentioning quick news about the disappearance of children in the new park we're stationed at, Ironbark. I would say that's not really the best kind of vibes of all time, but honestly a little like the beginning of Carson House. They're rarely mentioned from this point on, other than small details like newspapers on bulletin boards and other similar things. Once you're inside the diner and head to your RV, you can see that the door is wide open and that your bathroom door is jammed. Interesting. We hit the road and arrive at the park at around 8 p.m. or so. We can finally park our RV and get ready for the hike. I head to our tower. What the fuck? Okay, no worries. Apparently this is Billy. He's another ranger, but more on the logistics side of thing. For example, he takes care of delivering supplies to all the towers in the area. Okay, but pause. Why was he holding a gun right as he came from behind the door and this guy was just straight up hiding there? And that Lord have mercy line, dude, what? I'm telling you, this guy is hiding something. He's guilty. Take him out. Nonetheless, he goes ahead and gives us the key to our tower, a flashlight, and right as we're about to head off, he feels the need to tell us not to head more than half a mile up north of our tower because of bobcats and bears. Yeah, okay, this guy's either guilty or completely delulu. Take your pick. After a pretty long hike, we finally arrive at our tower. We turn on the generator so we can actually see something in there and head up. Once we're inside, hold up. Is this not just Firewatch? We sign in into our computer to check everything on our out and to also let everyone know that we didn't get mauled by a damn bear on the way there. And so we receive a message on our radio from Connor from Tower 12, the closest tower to us. And lo and behold, everyone, I present to you the guy I've seen multiple people on TikTok thirst over. You don't even try to deny it. I know what you are. He recommends we get a fire started before the temperature drops, so we go down to the small shack near the tower and grab some firewood. We go ahead and do our nightly report as Connor suggested before we head to bed. At 3 a.m. we wake up to yeah, I managed to avoid talking about it this whole time, and I'm honestly proud I even managed to do that. Jack describes the unease and weird feeling he got from being out of his tower that night, which is completely justified since looking around lets us see a flashlight below that clearly notices us before walking off in the woods. Jack never does any mention about this, which is weird to say the least. The next day we sip some coffee outside before Connor calls us to make us aware of a smoke up north, and Jack does mention of it being gray, which meant it was a campfire. Nonetheless, it's in our area, so we head off with a flashlight, and once we get there, we hear what is definitely a guy's gut-wrenching scream before finally reaching the campfire and seeing it completely empty. But of course, we have to do our duty, so we grab a pot, fill it with water, and put out the fire. It's then that it occurs to me that there is a slight whistling coming from the bushes where it's clearly written that it's closed off trail. We ask who the fuck is over there because my bro, why is your ass whistling at me of all things? And as soon as we even say one sentence, we see a shadow crouching and heading off in the woods. Again, we don't quite try to ask ourselves what that was more than that and just hike back to our tower. Jack describes the feeling of being watched and followed as he hiked back, which probably definitely made him skedaddle back more than a simple hike. Once we're back, we describe what happened to Connor, who completely dismisses the whole thing. Yes, even the scream, saying it was probably a female fox, even though that scream was most definitely not feminine. But with nothing else to tell him, we make our daily report. Do the casserole recipe our sisters sent us. Eat. Have the whole day. Okay, head to bed. At 2 a.m. we're waking up once again because you can't have a single chill day in these games. When you get up from your bed, you can see a shadow reflecting on your wall and walking closer. The figure is seen crouching and going around the cabin. Fair warning, do not open the door. Don't be like me, guys. Instead, wait for them to do what they came to do and leave. Once you open the door, you'll be met with... Okay, so we're being followed and stalked by a cult now. We're literally miles away from all the other antagonists at this point. Jack contacts Connor in the middle of the night after, clearly in a panic, but he's dismissed again and makes zero fucking sense. This is who y'all are thirsting over. But Jack cleaned up and went about his work, not fully knowing if it was just a dream or something in that vein. Okay, I'm free. And the crowd face bombs. While we're cleaning our binoculars, we see a flare go up in the sky. Once back inside, we get a call from a hitchhiker. I'll say don't panic too much. Nothing you choose changes anything other than just a small change I'll be bringing up later, so you can honestly answer anything you want. After the hitchhiker most definitely encounters the cult, and the cult abruptly ends a knock. A knock at our door comes disturb the silence. It ends up being Mitch with our tower supplies. He ominously mentions us going up north when he probably should have never known that about that in the first place. He mentions the bobcats and bears again and to just not go back anymore. He also just asked if we took a picture of it about the skull from earlier and doesn't expand on it more once we say we didn't and that he can't do anything about it. The same day after going down for more wood to make fire, we get jump scared by a man who calls himself Silas. He calls himself a maintenance worker doing maintenance on a radio tower. Apparently he wanted to meet the new guy everyone's been talking about. people are talking about us. He says some cryptic stuff about how some fires can't be controlled and that certain things are meant to burn. He also knows our name already somehow, which I don't think I need to mention how that's weird unless everyone's been talking about people shared our name with them. We wish him a good rest of his day and head back to our tower. Connor then contacts us saying he's apparently tried contacting us for ages now and that there's never been a maintenance worker for the radio tower. It's been out of service because repair costs for it were deemed too expensive. So I beg the question, who the fuck was that? But once again, it's dismissed and we're told to simply report him if we see him again since dressing up as an employee is strictly forbidden. And that's the end of that. Jack explains how his honeys grew more each day and I think that is something we can very much understand. Time passes and the next thing you know, the next time we're waking up in the middle of the night, it's by Connor this time. He explains that you can see gray smoke and that is pretty much right next to a tower. We check it out and oh wow! Jack's first instinct is to take a picture like Mitch proposed before, but he forgets about the flash. The cultists start running toward the tower almost immediately, and while hiding under your bed, you can observe them checking inside your cabin before leaving. At this point, you decide to make a run for it, and well, what a bitch! It ends up that you were trolled by this guy, and you now race down the stairs to hide in the disposable toilet. Soon enough, once they have their back turned, you make a run for it. Eventually, you arrive at the parking lot where your RV is located. The cultist follows closely from behind, but you manage to make it back and press on the gas immediately. Jack explains after this that despite him taking a picture, nobody ever believed the story or what he ran through in those woods. Mitch even going as far as to say that we're all a little crazy around here. Teehee. His family didn't believe him either, even though he's never been one to lie about that kind of thing. But as he says, that was the last time he ever stepped foot in those woods. It goes without saying that this is the best episode so far. The premise is so much more original this time around. The story is amazing. The pacing is my favorite in the whole franchise actually, but shh. And even the gameplay itself was perfect with all the little tasks like your daily reports sprinkled in to keep you engaged. This episode also has my favorite details from all the others as well. For example, remember that guy who stares at you at the diner? Well, you can spot him with a shovel in his cultist uniform. This is also the same man who pretended to be the maintenance worker and the one you can slowly see walk through the window in Billy's office when you first meet him. This guy infiltrated your RV hiding in your bathroom and took his chance as soon as he could to get out and wreak chaos in the forest. You can also hear the cultists whistle in the background while you're doing various things often, and I think we can all agree that Billy and Mitch definitely got something to do with this whole thing. For Connor, I'm not 100% sure. He's weird, but it feels more of a I'm lazy as hell rather than I want to murder your ass weird. I wish this one had a sequel or another episode in the same vibe, but that's honestly just wishful thinking. It's possible I'm biased, but I simply think that this was the best episode so far. There's a reason why this is this episode I learned about First to Fathom from. S tier immediately. Woodbury brings back the recipe of being in a normal American house, but with a twist. You'll see what I mean. This time we're Sydney Harper. She works in a consulting firm and describes how much the job was taking a mental toll on her from the workload, despite the pay being pretty good. We do normal things like getting some coffee, go to the bathroom, get jump scared by the janitor, you know, a normal Friday in First to Fathom really. We end up reserving a cheap house for the upcoming weekend since we'll go there the rest with our two friends from college, Mike and Nora. Nora is going to be meeting us there, but since Sydney and Mike are both from the city, they'll be driving there together. And let me tell you immediately so there aren't any misunderstandings, I hate this guy. Literally 5 seconds into us meeting him, we give him a hug first of all, and then he just says it's not enough. Please tell me this guy does in the first 5 minutes of the game, oh my god. While on the road, we learn Nora has some issues, so she'll unfortunately be arriving a while later. I personally took this as a personal offense because what do you mean you're leaving me with my creep girl? We eventually stop at a pizza restaurant and were asked by this guy if he can hitch a ride with us. Obviously I said no. Bro, what game do you think this is, Stardew Valley? Once we arrived, we settle in, we put some food in the fridge and get jump scared by Rick, the owner by extension. He gives us a tour of the house. That wasn't really necessary, by the way, while I'm on the subject. He mentioned how a guy's mom apparently died down in the basement, and my first thought honestly was just, what the fuck, we didn't need to know that. Once he finally leaves, Mike proposes we fish dinner ourselves as there's a little lake, pond, I have no idea, not gonna lie, behind the house. Then starts the chillest moment of this whole episode. Fishing. Seriously, lots of love to the OST of this episode. So fitting and perfect for every moment. After all that, we play some Tower Stack. It's not just a ripoff of Jenga, and hide and seek? Listen, I don't know if it's just the options I chose, but I will say that Sydney never seemed like the most enthusiastic person of all time to be playing all this stuff. It honestly sounded like she just wanted to lay down the whole weekend, and even if you can be nice to Mike, I feel like the options to be uninterested and mean sometimes being there is for a reason. Like I said, I hope this guy perishes, I'm not gonna lie. While we're playing, Sydney investigates some kind of knocking noise coming from the bathroom. It ends up being Rick. Again, who's trying to fix the faucet with a hammer. Funnily enough, Mike does bring this up and his answer ends up in mostly just being you're young, you don't get it. He gets pretty pissed off at us for asking him to let us know before randomly coming over since we rented this place and would probably like some privacy, but nonetheless he leaves. At night, Mike comes knock at our door because this big baby can't sleep. From here starts a really weird sequence where Mike and Sydney are sitting on the bed and he mentions something that happened between them before the events of the game. It's never openly mentioned, but reading in between the lines gives you a vast idea of what he means. It almost sounds like he's trying to convince Sydney to do something before Nora thankfully sends a text that one of her tires went flat and needs us to come help her out. This seems to piss off Mike a little, but he decides to go alone because there's no point in both of us freezing. Respectfully, Mike, are you stupid or something? Because why would you leave what sounds to be a pretty evident crush alone in a house, which you know the owner has a tendency of randomly coming back just because he can. Once he's gone, Sydney tries to sleep, but someone knocks at the door. It ends up being the hitchhiker from the pizza place, and he desperately wants to get in, but of course Sydney refuses, and he crashes out. Nonetheless, he says an ominous ass phrase and ends up leaving. Once we're back in bed upstairs, we can hear some noises outside as well as a scream. That's starting to make a lot of screams actually. Sydney decides to text Rick to feel a little safer, at least until Mike and Nora arrive. It's only when it's back that you receive a message from Rick. We quickly realized that the man we have in front of us is not Rick. That twist was strong as hell. I can't help but just say good job, honestly. Did we expect Rick to be weird? Maybe. But I did not expect him to be the villain in the story at all. I thought he was a little weird, sure, but I didn't expect him to pull a 180 like that all of a sudden. If anything, I thought Mike was going to be the villain after all, but I think that's just because I hate him, to be honest. Sydney manages to hide in the closet and attic until Mike and Nora get back and the cop that the real Rick called arrive. Unfortunately, the intruder had left through the back door though, but oh, we're really surprised about that. Sydney and her friends think he lived there when the cabin wasn't being used and plan on robbing them, but cops seem to think there was something more behind it. And this is where Sydney's story ends. Okay, I know this is a stupid-ass reasoning, I know, but I honestly love the aesthetic of this episode. Looking up the name of the episode on Pinterest literally gives you a bunch of screenshots of it. Also mentioned the pizza restaurant and the driving segments, so damn cool and nice. I personally have a lot of affection with this one purely because it reminds me of my childhood. I grew up in a similar looking area the house is in, and it honestly gives me a bunch of nostalgia. And also, Norwood mentioned the OST that I could kind of tell was worked on, or at least had a lot of research effort put to find fitting sounds and songs. The story is also amazing. Props to Mike for genuinely making me forget about Rick's existence for a good while. I'd put it close to Ironbark Lookout, especially because of the twist, but the pacing isn't my favorite this time around, so I can't possibly put it in S. It's going to go in A, but this is a very plus A. I know this is going to sound stupid, but I discovered Fears to Fathom at a time where I really needed it, and it gave me the motivation to start making videos again, so it honestly deserved a video that holds up more than the ones I made a year ago. Fair warning that I really only went and surfaced and did a quick resume for each episode, otherwise we'd be here for 2 hours if not more. So I strongly encourage that you check them out for yourself. If you don't mind the story being spoiled, that is. I hope you enjoyed this video nonetheless. Here's the final tier list, and please don't kill me for Carson House rating. I swear I really tried to like it. Feel free to join my Discord and check out my Twitch if you want to stay updated. Otherwise, all my other socials in the description. Happy Halloween, and until next time.